Hello, everybody. This is Monday, so this is about standing up for yourself, which we promised we would do in the Pets course. This is Petra from the Nevelle show. Now, one of the strategies you can use, which is pretty obvious, but which is not always seen, is to simply understand why they are doing what they're doing. And 90% of the time, it will not be the reason that they quote. It will not be that your pet has done something wrong or that you have done something wrong. It has a lot of times to do with themselves, with the way they see themselves, with the relationships they have. And if you find out what it is, you can maybe address that issue by giving them comfort in some way or by solving that issue for them, which makes it easier for you then. That will require a lot of maturity. It will require that you don't get upset about what they say about you, that you have the self-confidence to do that. But it can sometimes be the best version because of the best option. A lot of people in marketing or sales know that if a customer is upset, for example, and they solve the issue for them, it will strengthen the relationship. Now, what could be the issue if somebody is complaining about being allergic of your cats, for example? Well, the issue could simply be that she isn't allergic at all, but she feels unseen in her marriage. So she creates a big problem so that her husband can help her. That is a huge, big pattern in marriages a lot of times, or in normal partnerships a lot of times, that people will create a problem, especially if they feel unseen or if they feel that they're not very important. If they feel less important than the people around them, that they create a big issue. And then when everybody around them who they feel are more important than them will defend them, they feel important as well. I mean, have you ever had this? Like as a child, for example, that if you saw acknowledgement by someone, that was just the end goal. You didn't actually need to achieve anything. You just needed to be acknowledged. And that is why you were so proud of your grades, for example, if you were good at school, or so proud of racing down the hill. It didn't do anything for the world. But if you got down first, unless you were an Olympian or something, you were acknowledged by somebody above you, right? And a lot of people use problems in order to do that. A lot of times it's also has to do with fear. And that is an interesting thing. I'm using a different example now because I just saw this. This was just really funny the other day. So I'm looking through YouTube, and there is this headline that seems to be tailored just for me, right? So I'm clicking on it because it's also a Carl Gustav Jung quotes, which interests me. He's a psychologist, and he's basically the father of modern psychology, right? He studied, I think, with Freud. And there are all these beautiful quotes in there. And then there's this one. A particularly beautiful woman is a source of terror. As a rule, a beautiful woman is a terrible disappointment. And that was the only quote about women. My first reaction, and I think I did post that as well, was, why would he be doing this? He must be either really hurt or really afraid of women, because otherwise he would never say something like this. And my next reaction was, maybe it was taken out of context and somebody is just trying to upset people with this. And it must be very likely a man or a woman who feels threatened by other women around her. But that is usually a reason, not because the other women are doing anything, but because she feels insecure in some way. Maybe because she has a guilty conscience, or maybe because she feels she hasn't achieved what she should have achieved. And the same thing goes for men as well, and this may well have been a man who put this video together, that they are afraid of women a lot of times. And that is actually what Carl Gustav Jung actually says, because after that I thought, okay, I don't want to be unfair to him and assume that he was just a misogynist, that he was just an immature man, basically. So I researched quotes by Carl Gustav Jung, and he was actually a really good guy. When it comes to women, he was very understanding, and apparently, and had a very big respect of women. And one of the first quotes that I saw is, a marriage is most likely to succeed if the woman follows her own star and remains conscious of her wholeness than if she constantly concerns herself with her husband's star and his wholeness. Which is not something you usually hear, especially not from men. right? But it is absolutely something that I've seen in women out there. A lot of times you will be attacked by those women who feel that they haven't really done what they needed and they only supported the husband, and then they think that everybody is trying to get something from them, when in reality they are not. It's all their own perceptions. So a lot of times, if you can address the perceptions. Sometimes it's impossible to address the perceptions because it's just such a need for them and maybe even the people around them to spin a big yarn about it, that, well, you kind of let them get on with it and do your own thing, right? But if it does affect your pets, then you try to find a solution that could be both good for both, and win-win solutions are always good. And if you understand what that is and what the real issue is, maybe you can solve it for them, and then they won't have that much of a problem anymore, right? One of the issues could also be that maybe there was a huge big fight in the entire community already, and you can mediate that fight. And once that has happened, they won't attack you anymore either, because they think that you're on one or the other side. Like, I talked to a mediation firm the other day, and they said that in their practice, 90% of the time, the issue that presents, or 95% of the time, the issue that presents isn't actually the issue. They get a brief by somebody from some insurance company or whatever, and it says something about what the situation is and what the legal situation is, and they then call the parties, and most of the time it has nothing to do with what is in the brief. The real problem is something completely different. It has something to do with their relationships, and if you then coach them on the relationships, the issue suddenly goes away. You also need to be aware that sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do, not just with your pets or you, but it has something to do with their relationship, that there's something wrong in their relationship and they're using you as a lightning rod. For example, that is something that happens with alcoholics a lot of times, or with people who are addicted a lot of times. In addictions, that is a pattern, that there are two mutually addicted people on both sides, and then they have a child, which is the lightning rod. And if you were that child, it could very well be that you are for some reason provoking that situation again in your other life, and that will affect your pets. Right. So there are situations where you can do quite a bit by understanding what it is, and then maybe just laying out what you're seeing. And people may actually see, okay, maybe this isn't the case. Or at least the people who rallied around and thought that there was a real issue will see that actually maybe we're being used, and maybe we're not getting the full information here. Maybe there's a little bit more drama here than there needs to be. Maybe I'm not on the right side. I mean, one of the things that we learned in my culture, in my generation, was that you never join a witch hunt, ever. And the reason is because you never know what really went on. Of course, in our generation, that was because, I'm from Germany, and the Nazis did quite a lot of witch hunts, and they wanted to that never happen again. So what we were taught was, if you hear about something, you will listen to both people before you make any kind of judgment. You never just judge somebody on the basis of what one person says or what one party says. Of course, in other cultures who have not had this training, that is betraying a friend. And in a job situation, if you have a whole company and a whole corporation, people may just rally around and attack the other person, the enemy, just in order to carry favor with the person who's thinking that there's an issue. In those situations, you may not be able to do much, but you can, you use one of the other strategies. You may not be able to find a win-win situation there. You may just have to out this. But a lot of times, if it is an unconscious thing, if it is just a thing of people needing to be seen or needing to be understood or needing a problem for them to be solved, this is a strategy you can use, and you certainly can use it as an analysis tool as to what other tools you will use. So this was it for today. I wish you a wonderful start of the week. I think I will use the next Monday for win-win situations instead. and we'll do these kinds of talks on Thursdays, maybe every week or maybe every other week. But I thought I'll drop this one in because this weird quote just came up and I thought it was actually really fitting. Okay, so I wish you all the best. Live long, live strong, and prosper.